In Meereen, Queen Daenerys Targaryen sits in her throne room addressing the day's supplicants. Among them is an elderly man named Fennes, who initially speaks in High Valyrian before switching to the common tongue. He explains that, unlike many former slaves, he was not a laborer, but a well-educated teacher serving Master Mygdal, who employed him to educate his children. Fennes shares that Mygdal's 7-year-old daughter Calla admires Daenerys and has learned about the Targaryen dynasty through his teachings. Fennes recounts how he was well treated and respected in Mygdal's household. However, when Daenerys freed all the slaves in Meereen, she did not anticipate the challenges that would arise. He initially remained in Mygdal's house, where the children pleaded with him to stay. Yet, fearing repercussions, both he and Mygdal agreed he had to leave, rendering him homeless. Daenerys insists she has provided food and shelter for freed slaves, but Fennes explains that these refuge centers are unsafe, where the young exploit the old through violence and theft. Though Daenerys assures him that her Unsullied will maintain order, Fennes argues that even with protection, he has lost both his livelihood and purpose, and is too old to start anew. He then pleads for permission to sell himself back into servitude under Mygdal. Shocked, Daenerys objects to the idea of a person willingly becoming property again, but Fennes insists that while the young may celebrate their newfound freedom, the old are left with only fear and hardship. He is not alone in his request. Many others outside are seeking the same fate. Daenerys, deeply troubled, asserts that she did not liberate Meereen's slaves just to witness them return to bondage. However, she concedes that true freedom includes the right to choose one's own fate. She grants Fennes permission to enter into a 1-year labor contract with Mygdal. Grateful, he departs, but Esser Barristan Selmy warns Daenerys that the former masters will exploit this system, effectively restoring slavery under the guise of contractual agreements. Next, a goatherd enters, carrying a bundle similar to those presented by herdsmen seeking compensation for livestock burned by her dragons. He hesitantly steps forward, needing Missandei to translate, and sorrowfully reveals that a winged shadow descended upon his land. He places the bundle on the ground and opens it, exposing the charred remains of his 3-year-old daughter, Zalla. Daenerys is horrified to learn that her largest dragon, Drogon, incinerated the child. Deeply shaken, she meets with Missandei and Grey Worm to discuss the growing threat her dragons pose to Meereen's people. Grey Worm reports that Drogon was last seen flying over the Black Cliffs 3 days prior, but his whereabouts are now unknown. Accepting that she can no longer control them, Daenerys leads her remaining dragons, Rhaegal and Viserion, to the catacombs beneath the city. As they feast on sheep carcasses, she secures iron collars around their necks and fastens them with heavy chains. Tears stream down her face as she locks them away, realizing she has reduced her beloved children to prisoners. Without a word, she exits and seals the stone door behind her. As the dragons whimper and struggle against their chains, calling out for her, she walks away, heartbroken. Far to the north, Bran Stark and the Reed siblings press on in their quest to find the three-eyed raven, though exhaustion threatens to overtake them. Jojen Reed, growing weaker by the moment, eventually collapses into the snow. As Meera desperately urges him to summon the strength to continue, Bran suddenly calls out, announcing that they have arrived at the massive heart tree he has seen in his visions. As they approach, wights erupt from beneath the snow, seizing Jojen's ankles and attempting to drag him under the ice. These wights appear far older than those near the wall, resembling skeletal warriors with unsettling speed. Meera fights to protect Jojen, but the undead creatures soon swarm Hodor, who is paralyzed by fear. In response, Bran wargs into Hodor's mind, using his immense strength to fend off the attackers alongside his direwolf Summer. However, more wights continue to emerge, quickly overwhelming them. Just as all hope seems lost, the wights around Bran suddenly burst into flames. A young girl's voice calls to them from a cave entrance at the base of the heart tree. In the chaos, Jojen is repeatedly stabbed by a wight before Meera can intervene. The mysterious girl urges Meera to leave him behind if she wants to survive. Heartbroken, Meera hesitates, but Jojen insists she must go. In tears, she grants him a merciful death by slitting his throat. As Bran, Meera, Hodor, and Summer flee toward the cave, the mysterious child covers their retreat, hurling magical fireballs at the advancing wights. As Jojen's life fades, she casts one last fireball at his body, ensuring he will not rise again as one of the undead. The group rushes into the cave, where the pursuing wights instantly shatter upon crossing the threshold. The girl explains that the magic animating the dead has no power within the cave. When Bran asks who she is, she replies that her people were once called the Children by the first men, but they existed long before humanity arrived. Bran realizes she is one of the last surviving children of the forest, the ancient, non-human inhabitants of Westeros, who carved faces into the weirwood trees and introduced the first men to the worship of the old gods thousands of years ago. She leads them deeper into the cave, where twisted white weirwood roots grow in every direction. Other children of the forest observe them from the shadows as they make their way forward. Eventually, they arrive at a vast chamber, its floor littered with bones. At its center sits an old man, his body entwined with the thick roots of the great weirwood above. Hodor gently sets Bran down, and he crawls toward the mysterious figure, asking if he is the three-eyed raven from his visions. The old man confirms that he is, explaining that he has appeared in many forms but now reveals his true self. Mira, still grieving, angrily points out that Jojen died to bring them here. The three-eyed raven solemnly responds that Jojen, who possessed the sight like Bran, always knew his fate but accepted it willingly. He reveals that he has been watching over all of them for their entire lives, seeing through 1,000 eyes and one. He tells Bran that Jojen's sacrifice was necessary so that Bran could arrive and reclaim what he has lost. When Bran asks if this means he will walk again, the three-eyed raven gives a cryptic reply. "You will never walk again, but you will fly." Jon Snow emerges from the outer gate of the wall and makes his way north through the aftermath of the previous night's battle, heading toward Mance Rayder's war camp. As he reaches the tree line, he is quickly surrounded by wildlings and brought before Mance. Mance notes Jon's return to the Black of the Night's Watch and questions his loyalty. Jon confesses that his time with the wildlings was part of Corryn's plan to infiltrate Mance's army, with Corryn ensuring Mance's trust by allowing Jon to kill him. When asked about Ygritte, Jon solemnly reveals that she died in the battle for the Wall, though not by his hand. In response, Mance proposes a toast in her memory. Though hesitant about the unfamiliar drink, Jon accepts after Mance reassures him it isn't poisoned. Mance then inquires about the giant, who entered the gate but never emerged. Jon explains that the giant, Mag the Mighty, perished trying to breach the inner gate, killed by his friend Gren. Mance laments the loss, revealing that Mag was the last king of the giants, tracing his lineage back thousands of years before the first men arrived in Westeros. Jon Riley notes that Gren was merely a farm boy, and they share another toast in their honor. Jon proposes that Mance turn his army back and return home, but Mance counters, pointing out the Night's Watch's dwindling supplies and numbers. He estimates there are fewer than 50 men left at Castle Black, though Jon lies, claiming over 1,000 defenders remain. Mance calls his bluff, revealing that he sent 400 men to climb an unguarded section of the wall and attack from the south. However, he assures Jon that the wildlings have no desire to conquer, only to flee south, escaping the White Walkers. He offers a deal. If the Night's Watch allows the wildlings to pass through the wall, there will be no further bloodshed. If denied, his army will take the south by force. Mance notices Jon eyeing a knife and realizes he came intending to assassinate him. He acknowledges that Jon might succeed, but would die in the attempt. Disappointed, he questions if the Night's Watch has fallen so low as to murder a man offering peace. Before Jon can act, war horns sound. Mance's men restrain Jon as Stannis Baratheon's army, carrying the flaming stag banners of House Baratheon, charges into the wildling camp. The wildlings, caught off guard and unprepared for a cavalry assault, are swiftly overrun. Stannis and Davos Seaworth approach Mance, who surrenders, ending the siege of Castle Black. Davos introduces Stannis as the rightful king, but Mance Riley notes they are beyond the Seven Kingdoms. Stannis demands that he kneel, but Mance refuses, knowing it may cost him his life. Davos then questions Jon's presence, and Jon explains that he was negotiating with Mance. He declares his loyalty to Stannis, revealing himself as Eddard Stark's bastard son. Stannis, respecting Eddard's honor, asks Jon what his father would have done with Mance. Jon replies that Mance spared him when he was a prisoner, so his father would have taken him captive and listened to his terms. Before departing, Jon advises Stannis to burn the dead before nightfall. Back at Castle Black, the fallen members of the Night's Watch are honored with a funeral pyre. Maester Aemon delivers a solemn eulogy, reminding the survivors that their duty is to remember those who sacrificed their lives. As the customary phrase, "and now their watch has ended," is spoken, Samwell, Jon, and other brothers light the pyre. Among the onlookers are Stannis, Davos, Queen Celes, and Princess Shireen. Across the flames, Jon locks eyes with Melisandre, whose piercing stare unsettles him. Later, Jon visits Tormund, who is recovering from his wounds. Tormund asks why Maester Aemon, a blind old man, would heal him, and Jon explains that Aemon treats all wounded men, friend or foe. Tormund then asks if Jon truly loved Ygritte, revealing that she loved Jon. He knew because she never stopped talking about wanting to kill him. Saddened, Tormund insists that Ygritte should be laid to rest in the real north. Honoring his request, Jon carries Ygritte's body beyond the wall, builds a funeral pyre near a heart tree, and sets it ablaze. As he watches the flames consume her, he silently mourns before turning away and heading home.